You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You are listening to Intersections of Faith and Freedom, the podcast.
We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna lose them without a revolution. I just want the power back, he just want the power back. She just want the, he just want the, we just want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna waste them without a revelation.
Welcome to Intersections of Faith and Freedom, where we hold space to explore the tensions and the triumphs between the sacred and the civic, the personal and the political, the spiritual and the structural. I'm your host, Joshua Outsey, and today's conversation invites us into a deep reflection on a powerful and often misunderstood word, liberation. On this episode, we're asking, what is liberation really? How close or how far is it from the freedom so many of us are told to value, to defend, and even fight for? We'll unpack the distinctions between freedom and liberation and explore why this matters so deeply, especially for people who live at the margins, whose identities are shaped by histories of oppression, whose lives are still impacted by systems that were not designed with them in mind. We'll also name what stands in the way. Things like colonialism, globalization, capitalism, and fascism. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're forces that continue to shape our world, often in ways that limit, silence, and harm. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at how these systems function as barriers to liberation and the very real consequences they have on speech, safety, sovereignty, and self-determination. You will hear from guests who bring insight, experience, and clarity. They'll share how they see the fight for liberation unfolding in their communities and why free speech and access to education are essential tools for resisting injustice and reclaiming truth. As we move deeper into this conversation, we'll explore not only the threats to freedom, but also the vision and practices that can bring us closer to a liberated world. So get comfortable, or might I say, get uncomfortable, because that's where transformation begins. This is Intersections of Faith and Freedom. Let's begin. This episode is grounded in the mission and vision of Project South, a Southern-based leadership development organization that's been building movement spaces since 1986, originally founded as the Institute to eliminate poverty and genocide. Their work grows out of the legacy of the Southern Freedom Movement and continues to be a force for popular political education, economic justice, and grassroots power. You're going to hear voices today that reflect that legacy and carry it forward. We'll begin with Kamasi Amin, who breaks down the importance of educating ourselves and our communities on the rise of modern fascism. From COINTELPRO to the construction of police cities, Kamasi calls us to pay attention and to act.
At this time, we see a lot of young folks being involved in the movement. That's without question. My only issue is that, it's a certain type of social class of young folks. I tell folks that people get involved in struggle in one of three ways, right? Either through inspiration, aspiration, or desperation.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of times it's inspiration via like you learned about the history, you just want to be like, people you come from. Aspiration, same thing. Desperation is actually these conditions that you're facing are so intolerable that you either completely go towards the position of like becoming what they want you to be, which is a savage or the thug and stuff, or you want to be the revolutionary, right?
Right.
And just destroy the conditions whatsoever. So I think that when we're talking about younger folks getting involved in the movement, we got to recognize that a lot of times, even when Black Lives Matter kicked off back in 2014, it was in the urban centers of the North and the West, like Chicago, like New York, like California, but it's a reason why the South was not like that, in particular outside of Atlanta or like Charleston. In Montgomery, where I'm from, It's a spot that was so decimated by COINTELPRO.
Okay.
It was a spot that was a stronghold against Jim Crow, against white supremacy in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s, that they had to destroy it. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference when you have a movement like where you're mobilized in Chicago but you're outnumbered. In Montgomery and other spots across the South, those were like massive movements, like really thousands of people involved in that. So they had to take that out, even though the politic wasn't overwhelmingly like let's say socialist or radical or revolutionary per se. It was still a spot where like folks were like ready to do what they had to do and they could be shifted. So now when you talk about 2024 and you seeing all these spots in the South that are not moving in those same regards yet, it's that reason in particular. But at the same time, I think that it's going to be a situation in which, like, if you remember back when we were reading about the African independence movement or the 16 to 70 in particular, there were spots like Guinea-Bissau that moved in a much more rapid or advanced pace than Ghana did because they peeped the pitfalls that Ghana had went through in 1955.
Okay.
Right? And so every time you
like
see...
they was learning from that history.
So Montgomery or any spot that's not moving right now will be able to learn from all the industrial centers and what they've had gone through, the way in which, they weren't able to succeed in the way that they wanted to because they start late. But at the same time, when they come into the fold, because as we know, revolution often is the most successful in the peripheral centers, in the hinterlands of the country, the rural parts of the country, that's where you finalize revolution. Once that happens and comes into the fold, that's when we're really gonna have power.
Okay.
So until the South comes back, we're not gonna have no real power. We're just gonna have like thoughts and ideas and everything like that. But once the South is able to get back on top, like Andre said, the South got something to say.
Yeah.
That's when we're going.
Yeah.
We're coming like that.
Okay, so let me ask you two more things. Well, about two things, and you can kind of, take it how you, go ahead and chop it up how you want to. But so you talked about like Rico recently, and you've also talked about cop cities. For people who have no clue what any of that means, can you just kind of tell us, and does that relate to COINTELPRO in any way for you?
Yeah, so Cop City is a project that was proposed prior to Rayshard Brooks being killed here in Atlanta, right here on University Avenue at a Wendy's.
Boom. Okay.
It's really right here. It's right there. I can take you right after we leave here. I can take you to where that Wendy's was. It's burned down.
I would like to go.
Okay, I got you. But you know what I'm saying? If you drive down here, come out of this spot, turn on McDonough, take a left on University, and you look to your right, you'll see, I think it's a Chevron. Cross street is a liquor store. The Wendy's was right there.
Okay.
But it got burned down. What happened was, and I'm telling you this from the comrades that were here, I was not here myself, the ones that were actually involved in the struggle. Once that happened, they set up this encampment, and they were trying to be in conversation with the Wendy's Corporation to build the Rayshard Brooks Peace Center, which would be a spot where houseless people, in particular houseless teens, could come. They could get showers, they could get resume training, job training and stuff like that. They could get education, political education, stuff like that. They were gonna have food and resources for people in the community. And Wendy's Corporation was talking about they was down with all of that at first because the pressure was on them so much. And this is at the same time that George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, like that whole explosion happened. So they were definitely like, yo, we gotta do something because we don't wanna have these black folks be on our ass the same way they're on our ass in Minneapolis and in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
There was a woman named Joyce Shepard, City Council, District 12. She came in, she acted like she was a friend of the organizers and the activists.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do, right? But she went back to Wendy's Corporation, made a phone call. She was like, yo, we don't need any type of peace center. What we really need is a cop city. We need Black Hawk Landing, training facilities. We need gun range training. We need explosive device training to like take care of our communities because it's so chaotic out here. That's what she said, in a nutshell. And so then they proposed the bill that would start the project for a police training facility, which is a military base for cops. They are having a military base for cops.
Next, we sit down with Jamar Rahim, who speaks beautifully on the role of faith in our movements. In times of doubt or danger, he reminds us courage is a spiritual practice. Said I'm gonna start. All right, so you're here with me, Joshua Outsey, and this is Intersections of Faith and Freedom. So who am I speaking with today?
I'm Jamar Rahim out of Atlanta. I work with Project South.
All right.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so tell me, so like what connection do you have to this ground that we're standing on right now?
Oh, this ground that we're standing on right now has been a part of my life for the better part of 22 years.
Okay.
We are standing in front of the Mutual Aid Liberation Center. And this building is a historic Atlanta building, once the home of several of the historically black colleges before I even think they were called that.
Okay.
And so the Theological Center, which was the Gammon Theological Center, which is now I think the International Theological Center.
Okay.
Clark, Atlanta was housed here. I feel like someone else was on this campus too. And then directly across from this building, you have Carver High School, which has been a high school that's been serving this community for the whole time that I've known it. And so I've been working and living and building with friends, colleagues, comrades, and youth right here in this space for the better part of 22 years.
22,
and so,
okay.
Yeah, man.
God,
So
man.
it is really special to me, to say the very least, and feels ordained in a way that, you know, some of my best homies, I don't have a whole big crew, but some of my best homies also work in this place. And so we've been able to maintain our relationship that's lasted for that same amount of time on this ground. And so it's really special to me. I appreciate you asking me that question.
I feel that, man. I feel related to it too. You know, it's so crazy, like how the BAM cohort has brought us out here, but how you actually, in some capacity, have been a leader in that as a facilitator. So can you talk to me about your role in that?
Sure. The BAM is a building a movement training that has been offered by Project South for almost as long. I was part of some of the initial BAMs as a facilitator in the early years, and what we're working to do is build the leadership capacity of grassroots organizers in and throughout the South, so that we can start to really take action on governing our spaces, divining the vision of our spaces, and providing for the community in a way that we know government and business and corporations just aren't going to do. Their interests aren't there in the same way. And so it's always powerful to have organizers like yourself come and participate in that process. We're able to build and learn and grow and collaborate and find those connections that strengthen our work, not just here in Atlanta, but all through the South.
All right. So in what ways do faith or social responsibility kind of drive your involvement in this movement?
So I am, let's see, well, one, on the faith tip, it's interesting that I get this question. I've recently started going back to church. I grew up in a Methodist church. My wife grew up in a Baptist church.
Okay.
We now have an 8-year-old, and so we understand that there's some kind of fundamental things of being a Black American that you can only get from participating in the Black church.
I get you.
And it sets a real foundation for us, and for me, it set a real foundation for me in terms of how I looked at the world. And so recently, hanging out at church on a Sunday, one of the kind of guiding scriptures that we're working from, which is famous, and so you'll know when I say it, but it's who shall I fear? You know,
You
say
that.
who shall I fear? And it's like, there's no one. There is no one I need to be afraid of. There's all this capacity that God gave me and all of us to really set the stage for how we want to be in this world. It's just up to us to walk that path. And so I really have felt, I don't know, restored or not, maybe not restored, supported by some of the messages that I've gotten recently in church and been able to connect them directly to our organizing work. If we are to have the future that we truly believe is rightfully ours, there is no one who we need to be afraid of. We just gotta walk that path.
I love that you mentioned that, because in many ways, there's a relation to how fear has been used to keep people from wanting to organize and wanting to make change for themselves. So could you speak to that just a little bit?
Fear is a tool of the oppressor. We have been convinced by the state, which is a colonial entity, that we should be afraid of our own potential in a lot of ways. There have been too many instances where the messaging that we receive is one of scarcity, doubt, and fear. And so when we can start to reorient ourselves away from that, we recognize our own power to, again, start to self-determine how we're going to be in this place.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives.
They give it to the rich, they take it from the poor. They take it in the face, they ain't faking it no more. We took it out of peace and placed it in the wall. There's nothing in our speech, but it's greater in the law.
Then we head over to the Nine Gammon Liberation Center in Atlanta, where we hear from Nautica, a young leader, thriving in a space that not only nurtures youth, but trains them in the skills and values of movement building. Nautica shares how being connected to Project South has shaped her journey and empowered her voice. Okay, so my name is Joshua, and the name of my podcast is Intersections of Faith and Freedom. So tell me a little bit about yourself and about your connection to the sacred ground that we're standing on first, and then we'll talk about like everything else that you want to tell me.
Yeah, so my name is Nautica Jenkins.
Okay.
I am 27 years old. My connection to this sacred ground, initially I came here as a youth from Carver High School. This was my third space after school to come here and be around other young people, but also it was a what's the word, transformative space, because I was around a lot of adults that mentored me, but also it expanded my worldview. I got to learn a lot about the world we live in and why things happen the way they do. I'm a child of poverty, so it really spoke to me. It really resonated with me. Being a part of the University of Sin Fronteras, University Without Borders is a class we used to do, but it was an opportunity for me to learn more about the city that I'm in, the history of the city that I'm in, but also how some of the issues that we face here in America also connect globally.
Wow, yeah.
So it really expanded my worldview. Yeah.
So like capitalism, which ties into fascism, which like all of those things that bottom line oppress people and keep people without a voice, and
yes,
boom, powerful people being, you know,
rich overexertion of power.
Boom.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of what drives me in the role that I'm in now, which is a youth programs coordinator, but also more specifically, I work with WRFG. I inherited this producer engineer role with You Speak Truth, which is a radio show that airs on WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM, 100,000 watts.
Boom, okay.
But it's a community-run, community-built, non-for-profit radio station that caters to those who are marginally, like traditionally left out of traditional media spaces. It doesn't discriminate against race, gender, sexual preference, things and age, which brings us to the youth part. So yeah, I inherited that show and that role from Emery Wright, which is our co-director here at Project South, and he started it in 2006, and so he was bringing young people up there to share their perspectives, their voices we don't typically get to hear. Young people are usually the ones left out in the bigger conversations.
Yes, they are.
But as a former youth, technically still a youth because I'm not 30 or 40 yet, but as someone
under 24.
Right, yeah, exactly. So like as an older youth, one thing I've learned is that young people have a lot to say. They notice, they experience, they also are just as much as a receiver of whatever comes from, legislation or anything impacting their community. They're very much on the receiving end of that.
Okay.
And so I find that it's super important to have intergenerational conversations, have intergenerational relationships.
Yes.
As a community, because children, young people are very much a part of that. So yeah, You Speak Truth is an opportunity for young people to be able to have their voices heard in spaces and topics they're usually not asked, their perspective. So yeah, that's kind of what brings me here and what keeps me here, what my passion is.
We also check in with Veronica from Taproot Earth, an organization that is deeply rooted in frontline climate justice and indigenous and Black liberation. Taproot is lifting up voices that have long been excluded from global conversations around climate and resource distribution. And we'll hear about their Building a Movement Institute cohort and what it means to do this work together in the face of disaster, violence, and opportunity. No, Veronica, tell me, what is your role with everything that's happening here?
Yeah,
today?
I am with Taproot Earth, and we're one of the partners hosting the Building a Movement Institute cohort this year for 2024. And one of my core roles is on the facilitation team, really thinking through how we're supporting the folks in the cohort and taking their skills and practicing them post, right? We're about to wrap up.
Yeah.
How are they going to move those into the Gulf South to Appalachia Assembly? How are they going to move them into SMA? And then all of the assemblies that we'll continue planning and hosting and holding in our formations to build power.
Okay, so lots of good organizing and a lot of planning, and what's the word I'm looking for? It's you guys are just doing this the outcome that you want. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the biggest, the biggest outcome that you would like to see overall for the people that have been in this cohort? How would you like to see people be a part of the Gulf South to Appalachia?
I think, one of the things we need is more folks with the training and getting the confidence that they, need to do what they already know how to do, right? Everyone here is organizers, they're building power, they're doing this in their community. And so the collective support of this cohort to keep moving in our movements, to keep fighting and building for community governance, building for sustainable solutions, and fighting against the climate crisis and state repression. And I think the biggest win is that folks are going out and then bringing more people in their communities and sharing the access they had to these skills, right, over the year with people who weren't able to be part of the cohort, and just spreading this knowledge and this learning and this understanding of building a movement, almost like a ripple, like you throw a stone in the stream and it just ripples out all across it.
Exactly. Well, that's really cool. So let me ask you this, why do you do this work? Why do you wake up every day and go to work to do this kind of work?
I was once just a very angry teenager at the coal company with not a lot of direction in my fight against them, and just yelling at them without an awareness of the bigger systems at play and why people took different positions or were in different roles. And I had someone who took a chance on me, invested in my leadership, and got me to where I am today in the movement. And it's just, to me, this need to repay that back, right? We've got a lot of really powerful folks, especially in Appalachia, in these towns with great drive and purpose and heart, and we just got to invest in them. And then we will have, right, in Appalachia, and that exists in the Gulf South too, right, we will have our communities being led by the people that are from them and driving it if we take chances, right?
That's really good.
On these folks who are hurt by the system, and give them the support.
So I'll ask you one last question. How does faith or social responsibility play a role for you in what we're doing? How does that...
Now, I've been thinking about this question a lot.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
And then had a big, disagreement or falling out with the church.
Which is common.
Right. And have been, now that I'm raising my own kids, have been thinking, like, what did I learn from that I'm acting today? And Catholicism has a huge act of service in it. They have work to do to take service to real change. But, you know, I grew up being in the Catholic Church, going to food kitchens, helping out, seeing how the church, you know, housed people without homes in the winter, did all of these collective care things for the community, and especially in rural communities. Like, the Catholic Church was our social services.
Churches themselves were like the community organizations in many ways, right?
Yeah. And so now I really do credit my want to still help create change and serve, and really serve to get to the point where we don't need these services anymore, from just starting at the basic level, right, with the church as a kid.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to talk to a few more folks and see how can we weave all these voices together, like a tapestry of folks either with similar ideas or even contradicting ones are great too. But thank you so much for running.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
But they just trying to blind us like we must evolve to the stars and the dudes with the cars and the Jews. We pay minimum wage, lost and confused. Who really wanna walk those shoes? You can't tell me that they worry about you. It's all about a scheme, they ain't worried about the lose. It's all about your green, they ain't worried about your blues. Hot shoot, bless truth tremendously. Powers what we need in the powerful.
You're tuned in to Intersections of Faith and Freedom, where we explore the sacred work of liberation, the courage it takes to move toward justice, and the community it requires to build a future rooted in dignity for all. We're back from a short but much needed break, and I'm grateful you're joining us for what's shaping up to be a deeply grounding and powerful episode. As movements for justice gain momentum across the South and beyond, we wanted to take a moment to center some of the work that's happening right here in our communities. Work that speaks directly to our faith, our fight, and our future.
And out, as for all the people who have been fighting before us, all of the people who paved the way, all of the revolutionaries who tell us in our dreams, do not stop. Let's take one more deep breath in and out. That's for all of those people in jail for fighting for their freedom. That's for all of us to think about who they put behind those bars when they speak up and when they fight. We're not going to forget them. Let's take one more deep breath in and out. That's for these cute ass kids running around here needing us to get this right. They got dreams. They done colored some water. There's some energy and labor and democracy. They got plans. They making plans. They need us to win. They at least need us to hold the line. And we offer that breath to them. If you feel like it, repeat after me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other.
We must love each other.
We must support each other.
We must support each other.
We must protect each other.
We must protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We
chains.
have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We have
chains.
nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
I'm going to say it again because some of y'all are going to go up against the popo. Some of y'all about to go up against militarized vigilantes. Some of y'all about to have to be in some dog fights. And you're going to need to conjure courage. And you're going to need to remember the Seneca Nation is still here. That the resistance is alive. If you need inspiration, it's in this room. It's in this movement. And we will not stop. And we will fight. And we will get free. We're not going to stop until we're free. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other.
We must love each other.
We must support each other.
We must support each
We
other.
must protect each other.
We must protect each
We
other.
have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We
chains.
have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We have
chains.
nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
It
chains.
is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our
It
freedom.
is our duty to win.
It is our duty to
We
win.
must love each other.
We must love each
We
other.
must support each other.
We must support each
We must
other.
protect each other.
We must protect each
We
other.
have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We have
chains.
nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our
We have
chains.
nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
I believe that we will win.
That we will win.
I believe that we will win.
That we will win.
I believe 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 that we will win.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
And yes, the song you've been hearing throughout this episode is called Power Back. It's a collaboration between myself, under the name Outsey, and Jay Bush. We created it over 15 years ago, and it still speaks to this moment. It's about reclaiming our voice, our purpose, and our power. So sit with us, reflect, rise up. This episode is about learning from the past, standing in the present, and building the future together. Let's get into it.
Want the power back, he just want the power back. She just want the, he just want the, we just want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna lose them without a revolution. I just want the power back, he just want the power back. She just want the, he just want the, we just want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna waste them without a revelation.
We chose poverty for wealth and sickness over health, cause with no power our troubles have been brought up on ourselves. That statement sounds wrong, but it's the opposite of left. We don't stay in our positions when we forced to hold our breath, going against the system. These days it gets you hemmed up. You speak too freely, you could end up wearing handcuffs. They'll do you wrong when you don't know your rights, but knowledge is the power which is needed for the fight. So we take a look inside of that good book for power over our situation, since it's power in the words. Yet we misquote the truth and get on each other's nerves. Separation is preferred for division of the earth. When we can't come together, we don't see how much we work. Quite perverse how this search for power hurts the universe. Money is the motive, but never for sacred sacrifice. Let's reverse this curse and restore value back to human life.
Cause I just want the power back, he just want the power back. She just want the, he just want the, we just want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna lose them without a revolution. I just want the power back, he just want the power back. She just want the, he just want the, we just want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna waste them without a revelation.
Oh, freedom of speech has definitely come under attack. Um, Back in, the 2010s and before, you could pretty much say what you wanted. Um, I mean, whether it was appropriate or inappropriate, um, it's just kind of like the American way of life where, you could say what you wanted with very little criticism, or even if you were criticized, it was just whatever. you, you didn't really have to worry too much about what you said. Um, but it's something shifted during the 2010s. Man, it just in Western culture in general, particularly here in America, um, the culture has gotten so sensitive. Um, Everyone, I don't want to say everyone, certain factions and movements in our culture um, are very sensitive and have fought really hard to make everyone just as sensitive and afraid to say how they really feel or what they think. When you think like phrases like, um, when people equate words to violence, you know, it seems like it's really virtue signaling. Like it seems like really good when someone is, maybe someone is saying something that's hateful or defaming, and you declare that to be violent speech. It sounds noble and very moral, but what that does is it erodes the meaning and significance of violence, and it robs the power of speech. um it has a negative impact, and so what that does is consequently you have a society where people are, kind of like afraid to say what's on their mind. And then I see this even in art. When I think of like comedians, we grew up in the 90s. And yeah, a comedian could say whatever, and people understood it's comedy. I mean, if you don't think it's funny, that's fine. Okay, change the channel. Find another comedian. But but a comedian basically could say what they wanted because we understand what comedy is. Comedy addresses real life and kind of puts it in your face in a way that you can't ignore it. Um and almost like makes light of it. And there's something really good and beneficial about that. I mean, there are obviously some negative consequences of that too, from a moral standpoint, but it probably does more good than bad. But, even nowadays when I see like comedians performing, it's just, I don't know. Comedy doesn't hit the way it used to for me because people don't, there are so many issues like at hand, and in any other time those things would most certainly be at the forefront of conversation and performance for comedians, but it's not. So it's like they're talking about everything else but the elephants in the room. uh and yeah, it just, I don't know, I see that effect on comedy, and that's just one aspect of artistic expression. I mean, how much more for poets and writers. I definitely, as a performer and an artist, wouldn't feel comfortable, really expressing like my true beliefs and thoughts about some of the issues going on in the world and society today at some university. Not at all. Not at all.
Next up, I'm here with community organizer, activist, and sex educator Terran Young, who also happens to be my wife. Terran, what insights can you share with us in this conversation?
Well, I think leaders build leaders. That's important to note. Leaders don't build followers. And also, when you're looking for new leadership, it's not necessarily the person that you think. When you want new leaders to come up in the community, it may not be the young person. It could be that older person that's lived through some things that might have some insight or might have something to share or new ways of thinking that no one else has thought of before. It's just new eyes on a situation, new movement, moving into a space, and not necessarily young movement. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
I think it's really important that we lean on wisdom as well as youth. Those two things put together are very powerful. And I look at the current situation that we're in as I'm holding my 5-year-old, and it can be a fearful, fearful situation looking at some of the things that are happening in the United States right now in regards to her education. She's a little Black girl. Are we even able to teach her education within the school, her history within the school system? That's where leadership needs to step up in school and outside of school. It's my job to make sure that my daughter is educated, and school just supplements that. It's my job to make sure that my daughter has a future, and society is something that can help build upon that.
So, what motivates you to work in the field that you're working in?
I think I've always done this. I didn't know that I was an organizer or an activist until I became an adult, very well into adulthood. But I think about when I was a child, I always befriended the kid that got picked on. And I didn't have to. I think, I was popular enough. I wasn't the most popular kid in school, but I was popular enough to hang out with the cool kids. But there was something in me that always went towards the kids that were picked on or bullied. Um, and I always ask a lot of questions, always got people together. I'd think about something like, this isn't right. Who else doesn't think this is right? And get all the kids together, and we go and, talk to the teacher about an issue that we had. And I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but it's always been in my spirit, because I don't know. I have been mistreated before, and I know that feeling, and I don't want anyone else to feel like that. I don't want anybody to feel that hopelessness or worthlessness. So that's really what motivated me to get into this line of work as I got older, and as I moved back here into southwestern Virginia. I began working with Southern Appalachian Mountain Stewards, or SAMs as we call it. And, that's an environmental group. And I realized that I have been doing this thing that they called organizing. And I realized that I had a passion for environment. I realized I had a passion for social justice. I realized I had a passion to just see things change and move in the right direction. So as I'm working in this field and in many different aspects, it just feels right. Unfortunately, I would say that if I still have a job, then something's not right in the world. My goal is to work myself out of a job. I shouldn't have to be fighting for us to have clean drinking water. I shouldn't have to be fighting for students to be able to use the bathroom. I shouldn't have to be fighting for people to have health care. But, here we are. So that's what I'm going to do.
So when you were a child, I heard you say that you noticed then that you were kind of interested in doing this kind of stuff. Were there any adults in particular, or perhaps, any peers of yours that inspired you to do this?
My mother inspired me a lot. She always told me that I was going to have to work twice as hard to get half as far, just because I was black, a black woman, a black girl at the time. And my parents, as we're sitting here now, we're sitting in the library of our house, and we're fortunate enough to have a library in this house that's filled with all kinds of information, all kinds of books. And I remember being around 6 years old reading a book called Breaking the Chains of Bondage. That's what I read as a child. That's the type of books that my parents had me reading. Um, I remember meeting Doug Wilder, who was the first black governor in Virginia when I was a child. I remember Jesse Jackson coming to my church. I remember just sitting in Carnes Gym during these Black History programs and being taught the importance of people that really have shaped our lives, as shaped life as we know it. That were people that fight and stand up for what's right. And so my parents, all of these people that I read about in history books, people that I've had the privilege of meeting, whose names are in history books. You know, when I think about people who fight for what's right and who stand up for what's right and how that corresponds with my faith, I think about Jesus. I think about how, you know, Jesus was this badass activist and organizer that really did some radical things. And when I strive to be Christ-like, that's really the goal, to be radical and love people in a radical way and bring radical change on this earth. Even, you know, I'll never be Jesus, I'll never be that big, but if I can just help one person, if I can just change one thing that's happening in the world to make it a little better, that would be great. Like, that would be amazing to be able to do. And you know, that's my North Star, so to speak. The goal is what I do, I'm intentional when I do it, and that I'm on the side of what's right. I don't want to cause harm to anyone. I want to liberate people. We all deserve to be free.
God, first of all, we just want to thank you for this opportunity that we are joined here together as sisters and brothers, Lord God. We're praying for change. We're committing it right now to your hands, God, as you use these young men and women that have stepped out, Lord God, to make a change. We ask, Lord God, that you be with each and every one of us, and that it doesn't stop here. That it doesn't stop here. That we will not keep silent any longer. And we want to be just like Josh said, we don't want to be yelling and screaming, but we want to do it where we can be listened to and appreciated. And then, God, we give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory as we leave this place, going back to our various destinations. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And feel free to stay along or stay around as long as you like. We'll be here cleaning up. We'll be starting to close down about 9 o'clock, but feel free to stay around and help us up, clean up and whatnot. I want to say not only thank you, but for coming out, but also for allowing for us to show you our humanity, allow us for you to, for hearing our voices, for hearing our stories, for hearing our thoughts and our grievances, our pain, but also the joy and like the immense amount of joy that this site brings me, and the love that this community shows for its people and one another. I just have no words for it. I love Big Stone Gap. I love my community. I love the people of it. I ask that you continue to show up for me, for my fellow Black citizens, and for your neighbors. Show up for each other, care for one another, show empathy and compassion, and be willing to commit to uncomfortableness and growth as we all figure this out and forge a better path forward together. Thank you all.
I'm Josh Outsey, and I am sort of an implant into this community, but am a cultural organizer by my profession. Being that I'm a lifelong Appalachian, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I've lived all over Appalachia, and community is just something that throughout the course of my career is just something that's always been tied into my work. I'm married to Terran, and like I said in the song that I just recently released through June Apple Records, Virginia is for Lovers. I actually came to this town, started a family, settled down, and am a member of this beautiful community in the town of Big Stone Gap.
Great. Need to move this along a little bit. Okay. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you all, I guess, how it happened that you all sort of inherited this responsibility and this sort of honor of getting to, organize Juneteenth here in Big Stone?
If we could we start by talking about the vigil first?
Sure.
And that event, and then we'll bounce off of that into Juneteenth.
We held a vigil in honor of the people who have been murdered by police brutality in 2020. It started, there was a Black Lives Matter rally in Norton, the town next to us. And when we went there were hardly any black people there. People were just like kind of yelling on the corner. And I think it was obvious that they didn't really understand like the fundamentals and the reason to hold a protest. When you're protesting, you have a demand, you're asking for something, you're just not out there yelling. And I think there was an ask from the community. I'm not sure exactly who asked, but it was asked from the community that we have an actual rally with a purpose. And so a few organizers got together. That's how I met Micaiah and how I met Jess. And we had a march and a vigil. And I remember marching from Italy Bomb Park down to Miners Park, and there were a lot of us out there. I want to say about 300 people came out that day. It was really big. We had the support of the town. We actually had the support of the police as well. And I remember seeing people crying as we were marching down the street, like people on the sides crying. And it was like, whoa, this really means something to somebody.
Yeah, just thinking back to the vigil, I think that one of the things that sticks out to me the most is the intentionality behind it. As Terran had just mentioned, the protest that happened a few days before, it was unstructured, it was unorganized because it lacked intentionality. It lacked the clarity and leadership of black folks in the area, whose community this is, who are, have deep personal ties to what's happening at the time. And so, sorry.
What was it? Did you hear that?
I heard feedback.
Those are my headphones?
Is it because of this mic?
I don't know. But okay, so you saw like the protest. Can you start over? Do you mind?
Yeah, I guess. Let me get my thoughts back. Yeah, so I think what really stood out to the vigil was the intentionality that went into the planning and the execution of it. And as Terran had mentioned just a few moments ago, that days before that vigil, that candlelit vigil, there had been a protest, and some of the qualms coming out of protest were that it was unstructured, it was unorganized, it lacked the intentionality, and it didn't have any type of black leadership from black community members. And we didn't ask for that to happen, right? And so the candlelit vigil, it was both to honor these folks who passed or who were killed by police brutality in that time period. It was also a moment for education. It was an educational moment. It was an opportunity for us to bring our community together to love on one another, to hold each other, but also to teach one another. And yeah, I think that was a really special moment. I think it was a really transformative moment. And I think out of that, all of that grief and heartache, we formed a really strong and cohesive unit to start moving some and shaking some work here in Big Stone.
Yeah, for me it was the march definitely that got things going. I had just put my home in Big Stone. We had just built our home in Big Stone in the Italy Bottom section, and Micaiah was very much so leading the charge, it seemed like, along with some of the, I wouldn't say approval of the older generation, but in reflective, the candlelight vigil, seeing the older generation there, it was almost like they were passing the torch on and was saying, now you take charge and let's go ahead and go with this. And still hearing their stories, and the fact that we still had stories of racism in this area that our parents went through, we went through, and what we're trying to not allow our children to go through. For me, it was a family thing. My kids and my wife both were able to literally march from our house in Italy Bottom to the Miners Park, and to see, like what Terran was saying, to see the people on the side and the fact that they were emotional, and it's almost like they were in solidarity with us, and the cars and the traffic just stopped. I mean, it was a humbling moment, it was peaceful, and to reflect Martin Luther King, I mean, I think it would have been everything that he would have ever wanted in a march. I mean, it was very peaceful. The police were great, and it was good to see that we had their support even, and that we can exactly just change the narrative of how things were to where things can be.
Well, that's all for today's show. I would like to say a special thank you for all of our guests and contributors. And also, thank you for listening. Until next time, keep up the faith and the good fight.
Want the power back, heaters want the power back, cheaters want the heaters, want the weeders, want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna lose them without a revolution. I just want the power back, heaters want the power back, cheaters want the heaters, want the weeders, want the power back. We ain't gonna get the minutes or the hours back, and we gonna waste them without a revelation.
We chose poverty for wealth and sickness over health, cause with no power our troubles have been brought up on ourselves. That statement sounds wrong, but it's the opposite of left. We don't stay our positions when we forced to hold our breath, going against the system. These days it gets you hemmed up. You speak too freely, you could end up wearing handcuffs. They'll do you wrong when you don't know your rights, but knowledge is the power which is needed for the fight. So we take a look inside of that good book for power over our situation, since it's power in the words. Yet we misquote the truth and get on each other's nerves. Separation is preferred for division of the earth. When we can't come together, we don't see how much we work. Quite perverse.